Hey, what's up? It's Adam Dunbar. It's 1:18 a.m. Wednesday, January 24th. So the State of the Union. I have to say that it's always sad and maybe even a bit embarrassing when you watch someone's dignity get crushed or anyone fall from any height. From a person slipping and falling on the ice to a guy who drops his case of beer on the way out of the liquor store to the junkie who just got burned by a dealer who turned out to be an undercover cop. These moments should never be made public, and yet they're celebrated with glee, with guffaws, and a great deal of schadenfreude by people who say, watch them on YouTube, or any number of other sites that make light of pain, misery, embarrassment, and the general mortification for the entertainment of people all over the world. These moments, from the bust to the booking room to the emergency ward, should remain private. And I know I would kick in the teeth of someone who was taping me slipping and falling or getting busted for buying an assortment of drugs or watching as I made the State of the Union speech. Jesus, what a spectacle. I can say that even though I'm barely old enough to remember Nixon, I loathe him and everything he stood for. The arrogance of power corrupting an already genetically criminal freak who stalked the earth and left destruction, disease, and foulness in his wake. Yet knowing that, I can't help feeling sorry for the guy when the cameras rolled and he boarded that chopper and he turned and gave the double V salute to America. It was a weak, sad, and spiritless attempt at bravado. Every time I watch that clip, it makes me think of that's exactly how a convict feels on his way to the gallows. There's no hope. There's no future. There's nothing but a blackness and an obscurity so profound that only he can understand it. That scene on the chopper almost made Nixon seem human. Almost. Everything old is new again. The poll numbers between George W. Bush and Richard Nixon are roughly the same. The country is angry, and though it may not have been the I'm not a crook or my dog checkers speech, George W. Bush looked like he was marching to meet his doom tonight. I'd seen it all before in old newsreel clips, and it simply amazes me how little attention we pay to the sense of humor, the sense of irony that fate holds over our lives. He looked just like Nixon, doomed, broken, haggard. It's like everyone around him is given up. A mighty balloon that soared so high is now lying pitifully deflated, lost behind the couch with the toenail clippings and dust bunnies. George W. Bush used to be able to give a speech. He used to inspire fire in the base and in the Congress, and I cannot for the life of me figure out where that went. Or can I? Could it be the thousands of dead in Iraq for what seems like nothing? A flood that not only showed the incompetence of the federal government, but its absolute disregard for the people who needed them most. Could it be the trampling of civil liberties and the winking of the Constitution when everything was honky-dory and the mighty flew high and stomped on a road of bones, all the way to a glory that turned out to be nothing more than perdition? I think the ancient Greeks wrote a story about that. Check it out. George W. Bush had the look of a man who was sneaking out of another man's house just as that man's car was pulling up the drive and his wife was trying to straighten the sheets out. Slinking, wide-eyed, unsure, tentative, until he made it safe to the street and smiled so falsely that every single person on passing him knew that he was up to no good from the very beginning. I felt badly for George W. Bush tonight. That spectacle of the State of the Union should not have been televised. Or they should have loaded up George with so much coke and fury that he would be pounding on the lectern and ready to kick God in the balls for disagreeing with him. That is the George W. Bush we're used to seeing, and it's sad when a tyrant or a truly magnificent despot is brought low by his own hand, and it turns out that it wasn't America under the sword of Damocles, but him all along. It makes it harder to hate him. Not impossible, just harder. And yeah, America has paid a price for his incompetence. America has paid a price in blood, in spirit, in pride, in belief, in confidence, in trust. But they are not nearly as steep as the price that is exacted from the one person who made that all happen, and then was forced to watch and sit around as it crumbled beneath his fingers. And then, for the next 2 years, to know that everyone around him is looking at him as nothing more than a Judas goat, or a sacrificial lamb on the altar of partisanship. The moral of the story is always the same, Bubba. Those who go looking for power deserve to find it, because it always, every time, turns on them and leaves them as nothing more than a shallow, depraved husk of a man. We are the hollow man. Somewhere, T.S. Eliot is smiling.